Welcome in on a Friday. I'm Juliette Goodrich. Our live feeds focused on the White House, where President Biden is getting ready to meet with the UK's Prime Minister today. Also, Francine might be weakened, but the cleanup is just beginning for the Gulf states. This is CBS News 24/7. Right off the top, our live feeds take us to Washington, D.C., where Secretary of State Antony Blinken will be speaking soon. Blinken is back in the U.S. after his trip to Europe. When that State Department briefing starts, you'll hear it right here on CBS News 24/7. So our monitors take us over to Washington right now for a look at the White House, where a big meeting will happen in just a few hours. President Biden will host UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer. The war in Ukraine expected to be a big topic of discussion. Now, we'll have more on that shortly, but first, the president trying to show his commitment to the Black community. And just moments ago, he delivered remarks at a brunch to celebrate Black excellence. Here's what he had to say.
Today, we recognize that this nation would not exist, and this is literal, without the blood, sweat, and tears, without the determination, dreams, and contributions of Black Americans. That's a fact. This place wouldn't exist. The Black community has always had my back, and I've always had yours. So thank you for all you've taught me. Thank you for all the love you've extended to me. I also want to host this brunch because we have progress to celebrate. Together, we're making the most significant investment in Black America in all of American history. We've centered racial equity as the center of everything we do. With your help, in just 3.5 years, we've created over 2 million new Black jobs for Black Americans and Black. By the way, the next Black job to be filled is as President of the United States of America.
So let's bring in CBS News senior White House correspondent Weijia Jiang for more. So what was the significance of this event, Weijia? And first thing out the gate was Vice President Kamala Harris in attendance.
She was not here for this brunch, Juliette, and that is because she hit the campaign trail. In fact, she left just moments ago for yet another trip to Pennsylvania, which of course is a critical battleground state. So even though she made history as the first woman of color vice president, she was not here, but they do work in tandem, of course. So President Biden delivered remarks at this important brunch to really stress the message and repeat what his administration has done, he says, for the Black community, and to say thank you for partnership, and also talk about accomplishments and his commitment to bridge gaps. In fact, that is what he ran on, and that is what he continues to do, pointing to the fact that his administration is the most diverse ever. And he also addressed what's happening in Springfield, Ohio. He brought up the Haitian immigrants who are under attack as a result of misinformation and lies being spread in that community about what they are doing to pets there, and he said it has to stop. And so this was an important opportunity for the president. Again, we heard from him directly to talk about how important the Black community is here in the U.S.
So Weijia, Secretary of State Antony Blinken just met with the UK Prime Minister during his Europe trip. Now the Prime Minister is in Washington. So what are we watching for there?
We expect the top line of their agenda to be about weapons in Ukraine, specifically, Western-provided weapons, those that NATO allies and the U.S. has given to Ukraine to fight the war against Russia. There are currently restrictions on those, of course, because they want to make sure that they are being used in the most responsible way. And Ukraine has been pushing for there to be an ease on restrictions for long-range missiles, I should say, into Russia. And so far, the U.S. policy is it does not support that. And that matters because when you're talking about the weapons that would be used, they are either American weapons or at least made with U.S. components. So the U.S. has to sign off on that. And there is a question of whether pressure from the UK Prime Minister today will change U.S. policy, although we did just hear from John Kirby, who is a spokesman for the National Security Council, and he said here that we should not be expecting any announcements today, wouldn't be looking for an announcement about long-range strike capabilities inside Russia. No change to our policy with respect to that. But of course, this is an important meeting and an important opportunity for these two allies to talk about that, where they do have things in common and how they want to move forward, because of course they've been working now for so long to try to find a path to victory for Ukraine.
Weijia Jiang, Weijia, thank you. All right, let's turn our video feeds now to the West Coast. Justin Wayne Holstenberg, set to be arraigned today. He's the man accused of starting the devastating line fire currently ravaging San Bernardino County in California. CBS News senior national environmental correspondent Ben Tracy has been following these fires all week. Joins us now for more. And first things first, Ben, what do we know about the suspect and his charges?
Well, he's 34 years old. He's from Norco, California, which is that same area where the line fire started. And investigators say that he actually tried to start the fire multiple times, 2 times, and then on the 3rd time he was successful. And that is the fire that we now know as the line fire, which has burned through 37,000 acres, impacting about 100,000 people. Now, he is now charged with multiple counts of arson. They say that he used incendiary devices to start this fire. His mother is actually defending him in a text to the Los Angeles Times. She apparently said he did not start this fire, but clearly investigators feel otherwise, and that's why he is in court this morning.
Absolutely devastating. So, Ben, is there any sign these fires might stop burning soon? What have you heard?
Yeah, there's actually a lot of encouraging signs. I mean, right behind me here, this mountainside is where the fire here, the airport fire, had been burning, and as you can see, it's not happening anymore. And what looks like smoke up there is actually fog. We had a very thick, what we call a marine layer here in California that came in this morning. That has dropped the temperatures down dramatically. It's added a lot of moisture to these areas. So firefighters are actually very encouraged. They think they're going to be able to get the upper hand on these fires and really boost those containment levels. We're not seeing any sort of kind of active flame situation on any of these fires anymore. So that gives firefighters a day where they can build containment lines and hopefully keep these from spreading further.
Oh, Ben, that's good news, because I truly thought that was smoke behind you, so welcome the fog. Ben Tracy, Ben, thank you. All right, let's go to meteorologist Jessica Birch now for more on the conditions. Hey, Jess.
You know, we've been keeping such a close eye on all of Southern California with fire conditions widespread throughout that region. But earlier this week, we had that heat wave sweep through with record-breaking numbers throughout Los Angeles, all the way over in San Bernardino. And everyone's been working so hard. CAL FIRE, the National Guard got activated. You've been seeing ski resorts like the Mountain High Ski Resort turn on their snow blowers just to keep that fire line away from them, and it's working. But we continue to still deal with poor air quality, anywhere from the line fire stretching all the way over into the airport fire, with the updated numbers now at 51,000 acres for the bridge fire, 37 for the line fire. And this smoke is getting lifted into the upper level atmosphere, and it's getting pushed over into Nevada and all throughout that region as we head into the coming days, bringing in poor air quality. But at least those red flag warnings have now been expired. As we head into the coming days, we continue to monitor Southern California as they're finally catching a break from all that heat we had earlier. Let's advance this though, because the winds are still a big concern, especially in the afternoon hours. Areas like San Bernardino could see wind gusts anywhere up to around 20 miles per hour this afternoon, and we see a similar trend as we head into our Saturday afternoon forecast too. Now, whether or not the surface level is going to see poor air quality, it really depends on where you're at. But you look up in the skies down there, and they're all seeing the same painted picture. For the most part, it is still poor air quality in areas close to San Bernardino, all the way over into Los Angeles. We're in that moderate category. I'd mentioned temperatures just a second ago, and I want to show you that real fast. We had triple digits in areas like Los Angeles earlier this week. Record-breaking numbers widespread throughout Southern California, but now we're talking about 70s and higher relative humidity. All of these are great things, all great ingredients when it comes to fire weather conditions down there. And we'll have more on that in a bit, and what's going on with the tropics too coming up in just a bit, Juliet.
Right, the conditions are working in their favor, though. All right, Jess, thank you. Coming up, we will take you to Capitol Hill, where Secretary of State Antony Blinken will be speaking soon at the State Department briefing. You're watching CBS News 24/7. All Our monitors take us now to Long Island, New York, where you can see pop star Justin Timberlake just arriving to court for his DWI hearing. Those charges over here, those charges have now been dropped after Timberlake reached a deal with prosecutors to accept lesser traffic violations as a part of a plea agreement. So Timberlake spoke earlier. Let's hear what he had to say.
I found myself in a position where I could have made a different decision, but I've had some time to reflect on that. And I also understand by, the fact that all of you are here, that I have a platform, you have a platform, we share that platform. And so what I'd like to say to everyone watching and listening, even if you've had one drink, don't get behind the wheel of a car.
All right, so obviously that was audio of Justin Timberlake. So let's bring in CBS News reporter Carolyn Gussoff from outside the New York courthouse right now to walk us through everything that happened today and what we know about this agreement. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, my pleasure. It was quite an eventful hour or so. What you just heard was actually part of Justin Timberlake's plea deal that he came to court. We knew there was some kind of deal. He was charged with DWI originally. We knew that he had agreed to plead guilty, and he did that. He pled guilty to DWI, that's driving while ability impaired. It is not a criminal offense. It's an infraction here in New York. It's a lesser charge. But instead of the judge simply agreeing to the plea, which was that he would make a public safety announcement and pay a $250 charge, instead the judge said that he was not satisfied with it, that it was not enough time for the superstar to reflect about what he had done, and that it seemed too minimal, and he asked Timberlake if he would agree to public service. So Timberlake said yes, and the judge imposed that as part of the plea deal. He will have to, within the next year, serve 25 hours of public service, community service, with a nonprofit of his choice. And then he came out and he addressed the media and folks here from Sag Harbor who stopped by to listen, and there were a lot of them. And he said very humbly that he made a mistake and asked the public, to seriously consider not getting behind the wheel even after one drink. That's what he admitted to, that he had one drink and he made a grave mistake, a serious mistake, and he apologized. He was grateful for the court to give him this opportunity. So this case is over here in Sag Harbor, but not for Justin Timberlake. He'll have to fit in now those 25 hours of community service within the next year.
Well, his announcement hopefully will reach the ears of his fans, and his community service certainly is something good for the community and himself. So I think it was a good day for him. So appreciate your report there. Carolyn Gussoff, thank you. All right, staying in New York, the cartel leader Ismael Zambada has pleaded not guilty to 17 counts of drug trafficking and murder. Prosecutors are calling Zambada, also known as El Mayo, one of the most dangerous traffickers in the world. If found guilty, Zambada faces life in prison and the possibility of a death sentence. Boeing employees are officially on strike today. Nearly 95% of union members rejected the negotiated contract with Boeing, and 96% voted in favor of the work stoppage. Employees pointed to the 25% raise as a major reason for rejecting the deal. The workers want to see a 40% raise and a return of pensions, which is a no-go for the company. Boeing responded to the development saying they're, quote, ready to get back to the table. All right, here's a look now outside the Memphis Federal Building, where the trial against 3 former police officers accused of killing Tyree Nichols has resumed today. Court was in recess early on Thursday because of severe weather from Francine, but prosecutors were still able to put a 3rd witness on the stand before that recess. In fact, jurors heard from a Maryland Police Department trainer about the force used during the 2023 traffic stop. They were also shown body camera footage and Sky Cop feeds from that night. So as this trial resumed, attorney Ben Crump held a press conference calling for an end to police brutality alongside the families of Breonna Taylor, Tyree Nichols, and Sonia Massey. So take a listen.
Surely, after Michael Brown and Ferguson, hands up, don't shoot, that we would get systematic police reform in America. It didn't happen. We thought certainly after George Floyd was tortured to death on video during a pandemic, And everybody saw it, Congressman Horsford. We thought we were going to get police reform in America. It didn't happen. And then after Tyree Nichols was brutally beaten by 5 police officers, we thought we would get systematic police reform. It didn't happen. And I can only fathom, had we got that reform, how many families up here like Sonia Massey and others would have been spared their loved one becoming another hashtag. It is an urgent call. An urgent call. How many more exhibits, America, do we have to give you before we say we have to have some reform on these officers?
Crump also touched on the ongoing federal trials against the officers accused of killing Breonna Taylor. A judge there dismissed 2 charges against those officers. All right, our video feeds are going to take us above Francine's aftermath when we come back. This is CBS News 24/7. All right, our live feeds taking us back to Washington, D.C., where Secretary of State Antony Blinken will soon be speaking. And when that State Department briefing starts, you'll hear it right here on CBS News 24/7. Our video feeds now taking us down to Louisiana, where drivers are still dealing with high water, like you're saying, after what was Hurricane Francine slamming the state as a Category 2 storm. This is in St. James Parish. This is just west of New Orleans. But if you take a look at it, this view from a Coast Guard helicopter might give you an even better look at the flooding along the Louisiana coast. And here's another view from up above of Francine's aftermath. This is Mandeville, just north of New Orleans. And the storm's damage forced deputies into action in several places, like you're seeing here in Donaldsonville. So these first responders, look at this, they had to rescue a woman who became trapped underneath a tree. Deputies say the woman was understandably shaken by the situation, but they were able to calm her. So communities in Mississippi, they're also cleaning up from remnants of this weekend storm. The wind sent a tree just crashing through the roof of an eastern part of the state there. Fortunately, no one was hurt. And then thousands still in the dark right now in Louisiana and Mississippi. Now you're looking at a map from the power company Entergy. We know over 100,000 people are still without power in Louisiana. So for more on that, let's go to meteorologist Jessica Birch to talk about the power outages and just the storm conditions there.
It's been bad everywhere. I mean, you look at that map too, and look at the Texas coastline. They got hit heavy too with storm surge, and we continue to keep a close eye on the damage that's been caused all the way down into Louisiana. Let's start off with where the National Weather Service has issued advisories, though. See all that green on this map? Flood watches still in effect from the leftovers of Francine. The storm packed its punch along that coastline of Texas into Louisiana, all along the Panhandle too, stretching over into Destin, Florida. Taking a look behind me, well, there's still some severe weather as we head into the coming days from that exact same system. We're tracking the tropics closely, and as this starts to wring out the last of its energy, it is still impacting many community members all throughout Alabama, Mississippi, and Georgia. Look at that surge of moisture coming in from the Gulf of Mexico as we head into this weekend's forecast. This is going to impact many weekend events, widespread from Atlanta all the way over into Huntsville, an enhanced risk right now for our excessive rainfall outlook as we head into the coming days. Just in northern Alabama alone, I used to live there, and that area gets active weather as it sweeps in from the Panhandle of Florida, and we're going to see anywhere up to around an additional 4 inches of rain up near Huntsville. Over into Columbus too, 2 inches expected there in that exact region. Still has severe weather. We could see tornado activity anywhere from areas like Dothan, Alabama, up into Montgomery, Huntsville too, stretching close to Atlanta. So we'll continue to keep a close eye on that. Damaging wind is possible throughout that region throughout this weekend's forecast. And as we track the tropics, areas like Cabo are dealing with really active weather from another tropical storm too. Max winds right now with this one anywhere up to 45 miles per hour as it tries to stay alive throughout that Strait of Baja. We'll have more on this in a bit, but for now, over to you, Juliet.
All right, Jessica, thank you. It's not just the West dealing with fires. In fact, our video feeds show you what it looks like in parts of South America. We're talking Brazil's Amazon rainforest through the world's largest wetlands to dry forests in Bolivia. South America already broke a previous record for the number of fires seen in a year. And then check out this video that we have from Germany. Thankfully, this bridge here that you see, look at that. It was empty when it collapsed. This is in Dresden in the eastern part of the country. Still no word on why or how this even happened. Crews are rushing to clear what remains of the bridge from the river as the city is expecting heavy rainfall and flooding over there in the next few days. We are back on the campaign trail. Former President Donald Trump is in Los Angeles. We'll have that for you from our video feeds live. This is CBS News 24/7. Welcome back. We're taking you inside the room right now where Folton County DA Fani Willis has defied the subpoena issued by a Georgia state special panel. The Republican-led group was convened to investigate her romantic relationship with the special prosecutor overseeing Georgia's Trump election interference case. CBS News reporter Jared Eggleston was in that hearing today. He's going to paint the picture for us. So what happened when it was clear that Willis would not be showing up, and what is next?
Juliet, good afternoon. The chairman, Bill Cowsert, started the meeting saying, I've seen the media reports. I'm aware of the media reports that the district attorney is planning on or has suggested that she will not show up today. He noted that he didn't see her there in the gallery with a bunch of media there, and then moved on with today's meeting, talking about talking with some of their lawyers, talking about just why exactly they feel they have the authority to subpoena the district attorney. The DA and her legal team says that this particular panel does not have the authority to subpoena her. They have tried to get it into the courts. A judge hasn't heard that yet, but that is the next step in the case right now. The chairman did circle back at the end of the meeting about an hour and a half later and had the security guards go into the hallway and physically check for the district attorney. And while that was going on, we did find out actually that the district attorney is in D.C. today, Washington, D.C., where she'll be having some meetings and also holding a re-election campaign fundraiser.
So, Jared, we do know that the 2020 election interference case on hold as the Court of Appeals reviews whether Willis can continue prosecuting. So another judge, though, dropped those 2 charges against Trump brought on by Willis. So what happens now?
So essentially at this point, Judge McAfee, who is overseeing the case here in Fulton County, he dropped the charges for some of the other co-defendants who are not on that appeal, because right now Judge McAfee essentially doesn't even have jurisdiction over the entire case. The Court of Appeals has put a stay on the proceedings while it waits for a hearing in December to see if the district attorney will even be allowed to proceed. So yesterday's ruling will technically apply to the former president once the case, or if the case, is remanded back to Superior Court. But as of right now, his particular case is on hold with the Court of Appeals.
All right, Jared Eggleston. Jared, thank you so much for that update. Meanwhile, Trump's opponent, Vice President Kamala Harris, is on her way to Pennsylvania. This is the vice president at Joint Base Andrews, leaving just moments ago. Harris is back on the campaign trail, stopping in Johnston and east of Pittsburgh, and she will then head to Wilkes-Barre for a rally later on. Okay, so as for her running mate, Governor Tim Walz also staying busy on the campaign trail. This is the governor, as you can see right there, arriving in Lansing, Michigan. This was just about an hour ago. Our video feed's catching that. Walz will also make his way to Wisconsin today. Turning now to the West Coast, Justin Wayne Holstenberg is set to be arraigned right about now. He's the man accused of starting the devastating line fire currently ravaging San Bernardino County in California. Let's go now to meteorologist Jessica Birch for more on the fire conditions. Hey, Jess.
Earlier this week, we were talking about red flag warnings in this exact same areas. They were dealing with record-breaking heat. Now, as we take a look at the line fire, the bridge fire, and the updated numbers for the airport fire, too, it's still impressive how large these really are and how they just surround the Los Angeles area. CAL FIRE's been working hard. The National Guard has been activated. And we continue to see just amazing stories coming out of this area as we head into the coming days. I mean, there's ski resorts up there using their snow blowers to allow that fire line to stay away from them. And it's working, too. But what's not working in our favor, of course, is the poor air quality that still continues to move its way off into the east. Wind speeds as we head into this weekend can get anywhere up to around 20 miles per hour, which really does cause an impact. I mean, spot fires happen just like that with only about 10-mile-per-hour winds moving those embers around. So as we head into the coming days, the afternoons are the bigger concern for us. But into the afternoon hours we go, at least we're not dealing with that crazy heat that we had earlier this week. We still see hazy skies, though. So as we take a look at the numbers just below me, I want to show you what's happening for us in that area. Daytime highs around Monday or even Sunday for that matter. We're sitting in the triple digits in areas like Los Angeles, over into San Bernardino. Now we're talking about 70s. This is a lot more favorable for those boots on the ground as we head into this weekend. And you get those winds moving in from offshore too, which is really beneficial when it comes to higher relative humidity. Of course, we don't want them too gusty though. And making our way over into the rest of the states now, areas like Phoenix and Las Vegas still dealing with those upper 90s and triple digits. Nevada, Utah, all the way over into Colorado. We're going to see some hazy skies throughout the next couple days as those winds sweep it throughout the upper level atmosphere. Here we go down into the south now. We've been keeping a close eye on the south because they're dealing with active weather after Tropical Storm Francine, or the remnants, I should say, of Francine is starting to sweep through that area. We'll have more on this in a bit. For now, over to you, Juliet.
Jessica, thank you. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin has made improving the quality of life for the men and women in the U.S. military a top priority. His Taking Care of Our People initiative supports not only more than 2 million service members, but more than 2.6 million family members as well. So speaking with service members, the secretary found higher pay is a top concern, as well as child care, health care, and support for military spouses. Secretary Austin discussed his plan exclusively with CBS Mornings.
We focused on things like enhancing economic security, also supporting our military spouse careers, and strengthening our families.
If you didn't know, the U.S. military is actually the nation's largest single employer. More than 33,000 Boeing union workers have had enough. We're live on the picket lines. We'll be right back with a live report. CBS News 24/7. We'll be right back. And welcome back. As promised, Secretary of State Antony Blinken is speaking right now at the State Department press briefing. Here's what he had to say just moments ago.
Accurate information is vital to the health of any democracy. It helps citizens understand the issues and effects and events that are affecting their lives. It empowers them to engage meaningfully in their communities, their country, the world. When state or non-state actors spread disinformation, material deliberately meant to deceive or divide our public, they attack the very foundations of our free and open society. In March, I laid out the comprehensive steps the administration is taking to address this threat to our national security and to our national fabric. First, we're building a more resilient global information system where objective facts are elevated and deceptive messages gain less traction. We're doing that by promoting policies and programs that protect a free, vibrant, and independent press, and that foster greater civic and media literacy so that people can better distinguish fact from fiction. Second, we're working to expose, to disrupt, to deter disinformation. Through the State Department Global Engagement Center, we're coordinating government-wide and with other countries to identify, to analyze, to undercover attempts by governments and non-state actors to manipulate information. Third, we're taking steps to hold accountable those who weaponize disinformation to undermine our democracy. That's what we did just last week when the State Department, the Justice Department, the Treasury Department, the FBI took a series of coordinated actions to counter Russian influence and interference in our elections and in our democracy. In addition to imposing sanctions, visa restrictions, and other measures, the State Department also designated the Russian state-funded and directed media company, Rossiya Segodnya, and 5 of its subsidiaries, including RT, under the Foreign Missions Act. As a result, these actors are now required to notify the State Department of all personnel working in the United States, as well as their property. We took these steps based on our conclusion that Rossiya Segodnya and these 5 subsidiaries are no longer merely fire hoses of Russian government propaganda and disinformation. They are engaged in covert influence activities aimed at undermining American elections and democracies, functioning like a de facto arm of Russia's intelligence apparatus. Today, we're announcing that these Kremlin-backed media outlets are not only playing this covert influence role to undermine democracy in the United States, but also to meddle in the sovereign affairs of countries around the world. Thanks to new information, much of which originates from RT employees, we know that RT possess cyber capabilities and engaged in covert information and influence operations and military procurement. As part of RT's expanded capabilities, the Russian government embedded within RT a unit with cyber operational capabilities and ties to Russian intelligence. RT's leadership had direct, witting knowledge of this enterprise. Russian government actors incorporated the cyber capabilities of this unit within RT in the spring of 2023, which is focused primarily on covert influence operations around the world. Under the cover of RT, information produced through this unit flows to Russian intelligence services, Russian media outlets, Russian mercenary groups, and other state and proxy arms of the Russian government. One of its projects is a large online crowdfunding program in Russia, operating within RT and through social media channels to provide support and military equipment, supplies, weaponry to Russian military units in Ukraine. This includes sniper rifles, suppressors, body armor, night vision equipment, drones, radio equipment, personal weapon sights, diesel generators. While the crowdfunding campaign is out in the open, what's hidden is that this program is administered by the leaders of RT. Last week, our government revealed how RT launders information operations through unwitting Americans to covertly disseminate Kremlin-produced content and messaging to the American public. Today, we're exposing how Russia deploys similar tactics around the world. In Germany, for example, RT covertly runs the Berlin-based English-language platform Red, a successor to the now-defunct RT-Link platform Redfish. RT also secretly runs the online platform African Stream across a wide range of social media platforms. Now, according to the outlet's website, African Stream is, and I quote, a pan-African digital media organization based exclusively on social media platforms, focusing on giving a voice to all Africans both at home and abroad. In reality, the only voice it gives is to Kremlin propagandists. RT's expanded covert capabilities allow it to deepen coordination.
All right, Secretary of State Antony Blinken speaking there, as you can hear. These are just moments ago, his comments specifically about election interference and also disinformation and about Russian sanctions. That interview just coming up, that news conference just happening moments ago. We'll continue to follow our feeds and get more comments from him in the hour. Meantime, Francine now weakened to a post-tropical storm. It could still wreak havoc this morning as it churns through the south. Parts of Louisiana are still under high water while crews work to get back on in more than 400,000 homes, get the power back on. So here's a look at New Orleans, where people say streets look like the ocean and the winds. Look at this, Jess, sent trees just crashing into the roofs. In Mississippi, people also now picking up the pieces of crushed homes and fallen trees. So meteorologist Jessica Birch standing by with me now, watching all of this and now giving us the conditions. Hey, Jess.
Yeah, you know, it was back in 2020 when they got hit with two back-to-back storms that really impacted that area, and they haven't really fully recovered since. So a storm like this, where it hits at a Category 2, definitely leaves impacts, whether it's storm surge, and that's not only in Louisiana, but that's also over in Texas, where they dealt with it too as the storm started gaining strength before it hit into Louisiana. And now, like Juliet mentioned, we're just seeing the leftovers from this system as it's now sitting over areas like Alabama, up into Tennessee, Illinois, seeing a similar trend. But you see that green on this map right here? That's flood watches and advisories issued by the National Weather Service as we head into our weekend forecast. Many people still impacted as we head into this weekend from this storm, and we see this really significant surge surge of moisture move in from the peninsula of Florida as we head into the coming days. Now that system right there is causing excessive rainfall outlook for areas like Alabama, especially just in northern portions of Alabama, closer to Huntsville as we head into the afternoon hours today, lasting into this weekend's forecast. Now the storm totals were impressive. I'm not going to lie. When we were looking at the past couple models just throughout the past couple days, we saw anywhere up to around 10 to 15 inches in some local spots. Now it's starting to die down, but there's still flooding in effect in areas like Columbus, all the way over into Huntsville, stretching all the way throughout Alabama, 1 to 2 inches with local amounts up to 4 inches. So our severe weather outlook is still at a marginal risk all throughout that region, from Destin, Florida, stretching up into Tennessee too. We could see damaging winds, a tornado threat, especially in those low-level areas. And we're going to continue to monitor this as we head into the coming days, Juliet.
Jessica, thank you. On to Boeing now. More than 33,000 Boeing workers have had enough. They are now on strike after they overwhelmingly rejected Boeing's contract offer. So you're looking at some of those workers picketing outside the Everett facility in Washington State. This is from earlier today. CBS News correspondent Carter Evans joining us live now from Renton, south of Seattle, and where we can see that the workers are directly behind you. What's going on now, Carter?
So they walked off the job, Juliet, around midnight, and that's when the contract officially expired. The plant behind me is where they build 737 airplanes, and all production right now is halted. So what the workers rejected here was a contract offer, a tentative deal that the union management had agreed to tentatively that would have provided a 25% raise to workers over a period of 4 years. Now, the workers rejected that. 94.6% of them voted not to accept this offer at all. And that 25% raise wasn't the only thing. It also included contributions to 401ks, extra days off, a reduction in mandatory overtime, some other things that they were asking for. But the one thing that these workers were really asking for was a 40% raise. Now, I know that sounds like a lot, but I actually went and talked with these folks here to see why they're so adamant about this number, 40% over 3 years. And they said, look, they're working off a contract that was last really negotiated in 2008 with just minimal, a couple of percentage point raises since then. So they say they've got to ask for that much just to get back up to where everybody else is right now. They say they've got to ask for that much because they're that far behind in wages.
Carter Evans. Carter, thank you. It is part of our mission here at CBS News 24/7. Our Eye on America keeps us telling your stories of solving challenges. One survey says less than 10% of the history taught in America's classrooms focuses on the story of Black Americans. But a woman in Montgomery, Alabama, made it her life's work to help African American families piece together their history. CBS News special correspondent James Brown pays tribute to Francine Taylor, who died this summer, but tells us how her legacy will live on through her work and thousands of lives she touched.
It may seem like a blur of information.
That index may be what I want.
But if you know what you're looking for, like genealogist Francine Taylor, small clues quickly reveal the story of a real person.
I used to like detective stories. That's what family history is. You having a little piece of here and a little piece there.
For some Black Americans, they are pieces of a picture shattered by systemic racism. At Alabama State University, Taylor spent decades as an archivist sifting through records where humans are identified only by numbers. Names are misspelled, and racially segregated records leave holes in family trees.
How important is it for particularly young people that they know their history?
Self-worth, that's important. I can sit here and tell you about my family all the way down to some parts of slavery. I feel proud of that.
In the decades after the Civil War, Black Americans owned an estimated 16 million acres of land. But by the turn of the century, 90% of that had been lost or stolen, amounting to a near $326 billion loss in wealth.
Will we ever know the full extent of enslaved people and their involvement?
Well, no, we won't. No, we won't. Because the records are not there.
I have that one.
For Josephine Bowling McCall, Taylor helped uncover the truth about her father's life and death.
In doing family history, we start with ourselves and work backwards.
Elmore Bowling was lynched in 1947 when McCall was just 5 years old.
Some people were lynched for merely crossing the street in front of a white person. My father was lynched because he was doing good. He had not committed a crime. They wanted to cut him down because he was making the wrong example for blacks in the community.
And that wrong example was?
Achievement and helping others to achieve.
How long did you stay mad?
I've never been mad.
How would you describe it, Miss McCall?
Hurt. Hurt.
When we spoke, Taylor was partially retired and undergoing chemo, but her passion for teaching was untouched.
Talk to the oldest person in your family.
Up until her death, she continued to encourage the next generation to keep looking at the past, sharing her knowledge with archivist Kashonda Murphy.
The past is important because it gives us insight into the future. If you don't know where you're from, you don't know what's ahead of you.
You've encouraged that we do that even if it makes us mad.
It will make you mad. It'll make you where you do not want to do any more research, but who's going to do it? And document it so that that grandkid or that kid can be proud of their family. Not what happened to, but because of who they were.
And we can all be proud of who Francine Taylor was. For Eye on America, James Brown, Montgomery, Alabama.
It is part of our promise to you here at CBS News 24/7. We are watching our feeds from all over our stations across the country. In fact, CBS News Philadelphia has been staying on top of breaking news after a fire broke out in a neighborhood just this morning. So here is some of their coverage.
But first, a massive fire in Frankfurt. Flames destroy several buildings, forcing dozens of people out of their homes. Even now, hours later, that fire is still smoldering. Hundreds of firefighters worked hours to contain the flames. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jim Donovan. According to the Philadelphia Fire Department, that fire is now under control. The massive blaze broke out early this morning on the 1200 block of Adams Avenue. That's in the city's Frankfurt neighborhood. Officials tell us there were no injuries, but several homes nearby were evacuated. CBS News Philadelphia reporter Josh Sanders is there now. So, Josh, how are things looking at this hour?
Hey, Jim, good afternoon. Good to be with you. Yeah, you said it. At one point, it's a very active scene, but at one point, 150 firefighters were battling this fire. So far, we know anywhere from 40 to 60 people have been displaced. The good news, like you said, though, as we look at what's happening right now, is the fire is under control, and investigators put out hotspots and determine what the cause is. I want to show you, though, video from earlier this morning, Chopper 3 video. You can just see how massive this 4-alarm fire was around 5:30 a.m. at the 1200 block of Adams Avenue near East Wingashaken Street. This fire is in a mix of homes and businesses, and we have seen a lot of emotional neighbors throughout the morning. People told us they heard explosions, which appeared to come from several parked vehicles that were impacted by the flames. This is a very dense area with homes and buildings, which added some challenges for firefighters. Take a listen.
We did have some water issues getting in here. It's a tight area here in Frankfurt here. So just getting all of our trucks and apparatus down inside it was a challenge.
They say fire, so I just get all my kids. I got 3 kids. I got to wake up there and then go outside.
It's very, very sad, and I think of the families a lot, and it seems to be 5 houses that are burned, so I've been praying a lot for them this morning.
And we are certainly thinking about those families right now. There are many road closures around this area right now, and we have seen Red Cross on scene helping those impacted by this fire.
That was coverage on CBS News Philadelphia. Over to New York now. You can see here pop star Justin Timberlake arriving to court for his DWI hearing. Those charges have now been dropped after Timberlake reached a deal with prosecutors to accept lesser traffic violations as part of a plea agreement. That agreement also included a $500 fine. Timberlake initially pleaded not guilty and faced up to a year in prison. Staying in New York, where cartel leader Ismael Zambada has pleaded not guilty to 17 counts of drug trafficking and murder. Prosecutors are calling Zambada, also known as El Mayo, one of the most dangerous traffickers in the world. If found guilty, he faces life in prison and the possibility of a death sentence. I'm Juliette Goodrich. That's it for us right now at CBS News 24/7. Thanks for joining us.